Elisa Lam was a young woman with a blog and a desire to see the world. She was just 21 years old, a student from the University of British Columbia in Vancouver, Canada. To those who knew her, she was bright and full of life, but she also carried the heavy weight of a serious mental health condition. She had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, a condition that can swing a person's mood from soaring highs to crushing lows. She was managing it with medication, but it was a constant, quiet battle she fought every day. In early 2013, she decided to embark on a solo adventure, a trip down the west coast of the United States. It was a journey she called her West Coast Tour. This trip was meant to be a fresh start, a way for her to explore and find herself outside the familiar confines of her life back home. She documented her travels on her blog, sharing her thoughts and feelings with a raw honesty. Her post revealed a young woman grappling with deep insecurities and a profound sense of loneliness, yet also filled with hope and a yearning for connection. She wrote about fashion, about books, and about her internal struggles. Los Angeles was one of the final stops on her tour. She arrived in the sprawling city on January 26, 2013, looking for the kind of adventure you see in the movies, a classic American experience. She wanted to see what the city had to offer. Her destination in the heart of Los Angeles was the Cecil Hotel. It was an affordable choice for a student traveling on a budget, located in a part of the city known as Skid Row. This area was, and still is, a stark contrast to the glamour often associated with LA. It's a place of visible poverty and hardship, where many people struggle with homelessness and addiction. Elisa likely chose the Cecil for its price and its central location, perhaps unaware of its dark and storied history. She was looking for a place to rest her head, a base from which she could explore the sights and sounds of a new and exciting city during her solo journey. Elisa checked into the hotel, initially sharing a hostel-style room with others. However, her roommates soon complained about what they described as her odd behavior, and she was moved to a private room on the 14th floor. This move isolated her even further. She was alone in a massive, unfamiliar building, in a city known for being tough on newcomers. She had been in regular contact with her parents back in Canada, calling them every single day of her trip. It was a routine that gave them comfort, a daily check-in to let them know she was safe. But on January 31st, 2013, the daily phone call never came. Her parents' worried calls to the hotel went unanswered. Elisa Lam had vanished. The Cecil Hotel was not just any budget lodging. It was a place with a soul stained by decades of darkness and tragedy, a building that seemed to collect stories of human misery. Opened in 1927, it was once a grand hotel meant to cater to business travelers and tourists. But the Great Depression hit just 2 years later, and the hotel's fortunes, along with the surrounding neighborhood, began a steep decline. It slowly transformed from a respectable establishment into a transient hotel, a place where people on the margins of society could find a cheap room for a night or a week. Its reputation became intertwined with the grit and despair of Skid Row. Over the years, the Cecil became infamous. It was a place where suicides were disturbingly common, with numerous guests choosing to end their lives by jumping from its windows. It was also the site of several unsolved murders, adding to its sinister aura. The hotel gained a particular notoriety for its association with some of America's most infamous criminals. In the 1980s, the serial killer Richard Ramirez, known as the Night Stalker, reportedly stayed at the Cecil during his terrifying killing spree. He would return to his cheap room after committing his heinous crimes, his blood-soaked clothes going unnoticed in the hotel's chaotic environment. Later, in the 1990s, another serial killer, Jack Unterweger, also made the Cecil his temporary home while preying on local sex workers. This history hangs heavy in the air of the Cecil. It's the kind of place that feels haunted, not just by ghosts, but by the very real and palpable memory of human suffering. For many, the hotel itself became a character in Elisa Lam's story, an ominous backdrop that seemed to foreshadow the tragedy to come. When Elisa checked in, she was stepping into a building that had witnessed more than its fair share of death and despair. It's easy to wonder if the hotel's oppressive atmosphere had any effect on her state of mind. Was she just another unfortunate soul caught in the web of the Cecil's dark legacy? The hotel's management later tried to rebrand part of the building as Stay on Main, an attempt to create a separate, hipper boutique hotel to attract a different clientele and escape the Cecil's grim reputation. But the effort was mostly cosmetic. It was still the same building, sharing elevators and hallways with the original Cecil. The darkness was not something that could be painted over or walled off. It was embedded in the very foundation of the place. For Elisa Lam, a vulnerable young woman traveling alone, the Cecil Hotel was a far more dangerous and foreboding place than its budget-friendly prices might have suggested. It was a place where people could easily get lost. 2 weeks after Elisa Lam disappeared, the Los Angeles Police Department was running out of leads. They had searched the hotel and the surrounding area with dogs but found no trace of her. In a move born of desperation, they released a piece of evidence to the public on February 13, 2013. It was a video, just under 4 minutes long, taken by a security camera inside one of the hotel's elevators. The police hoped someone might recognize her or see something that could provide a clue to her whereabouts. Instead, the video became a global sensation, a viral phenomenon that plunged viewers into a deep and unsettling mystery that no one could quite explain. The footage is grainy and silent, which only adds to its eerie quality. It shows Elisa entering the elevator, dressed in a red hoodie. She immediately presses several buttons on the control panel. Then, something strange happens. The elevator doors do not close. Elisa peers out into the hallway, looking cautiously from side to side as if expecting someone or hiding from them. She then retreats to the back corner of the elevator, trying to make herself small, as if cowering from an unseen threat. Her movements are jerky and unnatural, a pantomime of fear and confusion playing out in the silent, confined space. Her behavior becomes even more bizarre as the video progresses. She steps back out of the elevator and stands in the doorway, gesticulating with her hands in a strange, almost dance-like manner. Her fingers are splayed, and her arms move in a way that seems to defy simple explanation. Is she talking to someone just out of the camera's view? Is she having a psychotic episode? She walks in and out of the elevator a few more times before finally wandering off down the hallway to the left. Only then, after she is gone, do the elevator doors finally slide shut. The video ends, leaving millions of viewers with a profound sense of unease. The elevator video was dissected and analyzed by countless internet sleuths around the world. Every frame was scrutinized, every movement debated. Some people claimed the video had been tampered with, pointing to a blurred timestamp and moments that seemed edited or slowed down. Others focused on her strange hand gestures, trying to decipher them like a secret code. Was she signaling for help? Was she playing a game? The footage was so profoundly strange that it fueled wild speculation. It didn't look like a simple case of a missing person. It looked like something out of a horror film, a real-life ghost story captured on a security camera. When Elisa Lam's parents didn't receive their daily phone call on January 31st, they knew immediately that something was wrong. It was completely out of character for their daughter, who had been so diligent about staying in touch throughout her entire trip. Their initial worry quickly escalated into panic. They called the hotel, they called her friends, but no one had seen or heard from her. They contacted the police in Vancouver, who in turn alerted the Los Angeles Police Department. A missing person case was officially opened and the search for Elisa Lam began in earnest in the sprawling, indifferent metropolis of Los Angeles. The LAPD started their investigation where she was last seen, the Cecil Hotel. Officers, accompanied by search dogs, combed through the building. They went room by room through the labyrinthine hallways and common areas, but found no sign of her. They searched the roof of the hotel, though the official reports on the thoroughness of this initial search would later be questioned. The dogs reportedly picked up her scent near a window that led to a fire escape, and briefly on the roof. But the trail went cold. It was as if she had simply evaporated into the building's stale air, leaving behind only her belongings in her room. As days turned into weeks, the search intensified and expanded. Her family flew down from Canada to assist, posting flyers with her picture all over the neighborhood. They spoke to the media, their faces etched with worry, pleading for any information that could help find their daughter. The story started to gain local media attention, another missing person in a city full of them, but it hadn't yet become the international obsession it would soon be. For her family, it was a waking nightmare, an agonizing wait for a phone call or a piece of news that might bring their daughter home safely. The release of the elevator video on February 13th changed everything. The case exploded online. Suddenly, Elisa Lam was not just a name on a missing person flyer. She was the mysterious girl in the elevator. The footage was so compelling and so disturbing that it captured the public imagination in a way few cases ever do. Armchair detectives from every corner of the globe began their own investigations, creating forums, websites, and video analyses dedicated to solving the puzzle. The LAPD was inundated with tips and theories ranging from the plausible to the utterly bizarre. The search for Elisa Lam had become a worldwide spectacle. While the world was busy dissecting the elevator video, a different kind of problem was brewing inside the Cecil hotel. Guests began to complain about the water. It had low pressure, it was discolored, and it had a strange, sweetish taste. Some described it as dark and foul-smelling. For over 2 weeks, guests had been showering, brushing their teeth, and drinking this water, assuming it was just a problem with the hotel's old and neglected plumbing system. The hotel was known for being run down, so honestly, nobody thought too much of it at first. But the complaints grew more persistent, forcing the hotel's maintenance staff to investigate the source of the issue. On the morning of February 19, 2013, a maintenance worker named Santiago Lopez took the elevator to the top floor and then climbed a staircase to the roof. The roof was home to 4 large cylindrical water tanks, each about 10 feet tall, that supplied water to the entire hotel. These tanks were supposed to be secured with heavy, difficult-to-open lids. Lopez noticed that the lid on one of the main tanks was unlatched. He climbed a ladder to peer inside, expecting to find a blockage or some sort of contamination in the plumbing. What he found instead was a scene of unimaginable horror. Floating naked in the dark water was the body of a woman. It was Elisa Lam. Her clothes, the same red hoodie and black shorts she was wearing in the elevator video, were floating in the water beside her, seemingly weighed down by sand or a similar substance. Her watch and her room key were also found at the bottom of the tank. The discovery sent a shockwave through the hotel and the city. The grim reality sank in for the guests who had been using the water. They had been living with and consuming water contaminated by a decomposing body for as long as 19 days. The recovery of Elisa's body was a complex and grim operation. The fire department had to be called in to drain the massive tank and then cut a hole in its side to carefully remove her remains. The discovery answered the question of where she was, but it opened up a host of new, even more disturbing questions. How did she get onto the roof, an area that was supposed to be locked and alarmed? How did she manage to climb into the tall water tank and pull the heavy lid closed from the inside? Her death was just as mysterious as her disappearance, and the strange circumstances only deepened the enigma surrounding her final hours. With Elisa Lam's body found, the Los Angeles County Coroner's Office began its autopsy to determine the cause of death. The world waited, hoping for a definitive answer that would finally bring clarity to this baffling case. The initial examination of her body found no evidence of physical trauma. There were no signs of a struggle, no bruises, no cuts, and no indications of sexual assault. This immediately cast doubt on the theories that she had been murdered and thrown into the tank. If someone had attacked her, you would expect to see some kind of physical evidence of that fight on her body. The toxicology report was the next crucial piece of the puzzle. It tested for a wide range of drugs and alcohol. The results showed that she had consumed her prescribed medications for bipolar disorder, but it appeared she may have been under-medicating in the days leading up to her death. There were no traces of illegal drugs like cocaine or heroin, nor was there any alcohol in her system. This finding was significant. It suggested that her bizarre behavior in the elevator was not caused by recreational drug use, but it left open the possibility that it was linked to her mental health condition, perhaps a severe manic or psychotic episode. After months of investigation and analysis, the coroner's office released its official findings in June 2013. They ruled Elisa Lam's death an accidental drowning. They also listed her bipolar disorder as a significant condition that contributed to her death. The official narrative that emerged was a tragic one. Elisa, likely in the midst of a severe psychotic episode, had somehow made her way to the roof. In her disoriented state, She may have believed she was being pursued and climbed into the water tank to hide. Once inside, she was unable to get out and tragically drowned. However, this official ruling did little to satisfy the public or the countless online communities dedicated to the case. For many, it felt like an incomplete explanation that left too many critical questions unanswered. How did she get onto the locked roof? The hotel staff insisted the doors were secured and alarmed. How did she lift the incredibly heavy lid of the water tank by herself? And if she climbed in, how could the lid have been closed behind her? The ruling of accidental felt like a convenient way to close a difficult case, rather than a true reflection of the strange and disturbing facts that surrounded her death. The most widely accepted and official explanation for Elisa Lam's death centers on her mental health. She had a well-documented history of bipolar I disorder, a severe form of the illness characterized by extreme mood swings, including periods of intense mania and crippling depression. When not properly managed with medication, a manic episode can lead to psychosis, a state where a person loses touch with reality. They can experience hallucinations, paranoia, and delusional thinking. The theory posits that Elisa had stopped taking her medication correctly, triggering a severe psychotic episode that led to her tragic and bizarre final actions. This theory provides a plausible framework for understanding her behavior in the elevator video. Her jerky movements, her apparent conversations with an unseen person, and her attempts to hide could all be interpreted as symptoms of acute paranoia and psychosis. She might have genuinely believed she was in danger, that someone or something was chasing her. This state of fear and delusion could have driven her to seek refuge in a place she thought was safe, like the hotel roof. The idea of hiding from her pursuers in a water tank, while irrational to a sound mind, might have made perfect sense to someone in the grip of a powerful delusion. Furthermore, her own blog posts provide a window into her struggles. She wrote openly about her battle with depression and the challenges of her illness. She described feelings of being lost and unable to move forward, and the constant effort it took to maintain stability. If she had recently reduced or stopped her medication, as the coroner's report suggests she might have, it could have had catastrophic consequences. The stress of traveling alone in a new and intimidating city could have exacerbated her condition, pushing her into a full-blown manic episode that ultimately proved fatal. This narrative paints a picture of a tragic accident, not a crime. While this explanation accounts for her behavior, it doesn't neatly resolve all the physical impossibilities of the case. Critics of this theory still struggle with the practical questions. Could a person in a psychotic state, who was not known for her physical strength, really have accessed a locked roof, climbed a 10-foot tank, and opened a heavy lid all on her own? And why would she have taken off her clothes inside the tank? Some have suggested that people experiencing hypothermia can paradoxically feel hot and remove their clothing, but the circumstances remain highly unusual. The mental health theory is logical, but for many it doesn't feel like the whole story. Despite the official ruling of an accidental death, a large and vocal contingent of observers believes that Elisa Lam was the victim of foul play. This theory argues that the logistical hurdles of her death are simply too great to be explained by a solo act, even one driven by psychosis. The questions are persistent and troubling. How did she get past the locked and alarmed doors leading to the roof? Hotel staff maintained that only employees had the keys and codes to access that area. If an alarm was triggered, why is there no record of it? This single point makes many believe she was either with a hotel employee or that someone with access was involved. The water tank itself presents another major obstacle to the accident theory. The lids on these tanks are notoriously heavy and cumbersome, designed to prevent contamination and unauthorized access. It seems highly improbable that Elisa, a woman of slight build, could have lifted the heavy lid, climbed in, and then somehow closed it from the inside. This has led to speculation that someone else was present, someone who forced her into the tank or killed her and placed her body there to hide the crime. The fact that her clothes were in the tank with her and her watch and room key were at the bottom also seems strange, suggesting a possible attempt to stage the scene. The elevator video, which is the cornerstone of the mental health theory, is also used as evidence for the foul play theory. Some analysts argue that she appears to be hiding from a specific person. At one point, it looks as if she is talking to someone just out of frame. Could she have been trying to escape from a pursuer who followed her onto the elevator, causing it to malfunction? The theory that the video was tampered with also fuels this suspicion. If parts of the video were edited out, what did they show? Perhaps they showed a second person, the one responsible for her death. This theory also gains traction from the Cecil Hotel's dark history. Given its past as a haven for criminals and a site of numerous violent deaths, it is not a stretch to imagine that another tragedy could have occurred within its walls. Perhaps she had an unfortunate encounter with another guest or even a staff member. The police investigation has been criticized for not looking more closely at this possibility, for instance, by not thoroughly investigating all hotel guests and employees. The foul play theory persists because for many, the official explanation of an accident requires ignoring too many logistical impossibilities and unanswered questions. It leaves a lingering sense that justice for Elisa Lam was never truly served. Years after her death, the story of Elisa Lam continues to haunt and fascinate us. It has become a modern urban legend, a campfire tale for the digital age, retold in countless documentaries, podcasts, and online forums. The case resonates so deeply because it touches upon our most primal fears: the fear of the unknown, the fear of losing one's mind, and the fear of being alone and vulnerable in a dangerous world. It is a perfect storm of mystery, tragedy, and the uncanny. The story has all the elements of a great horror movie, but its power comes from the chilling fact that it all actually happened. The central piece of the puzzle, the elevator video, is a huge part of its enduring appeal. Those 4 minutes of silent, grainy footage are profoundly disturbing because they are so open to interpretation. We see a young woman in clear distress, but we cannot know the source of that distress. Is she afraid of a real person, or is she battling demons within her own mind? The video invites us to become detectives, to search for clues and impose our own narratives onto the silent, unsettling scene. It's a mystery that feels solvable, yet the solution always remains just out of reach, pulling us deeper into its web. The Cecil Hotel itself adds another layer of mythic dread to the story. Its sordid history as a place of death and despair makes it the perfect setting for a real-life horror story. The idea that the building itself might be a malevolent force, a place that preys on the vulnerable, is a narrative that is hard to resist. Elisa Lam's death seems to fit so neatly into the hotel's dark legacy that it feels almost preordained. This blending of true crime with elements that feel paranormal or supernatural gives the story a unique power to captivate and terrify. It blurs the line between the real and the imagined. Ultimately, the Elisa Lam case remains an enigma because it offers no easy answers. Both of the main theories, a tragic psychological breakdown or a sinister act of foul play, leave significant questions unresolved. This lack of closure is what keeps us coming back. We are drawn to mysteries, and the human mind craves resolution. The story of Elisa Lam denies us that comfort. It leaves us with a profound sense of unease and a collection of haunting images. A girl gesturing wildly in an elevator, a locked roof, and a grim discovery in a water tank. It is a tragic modern ghost story that reminds us that sometimes the most terrifying mysteries are the ones that are never solved.